Oh, we're back. It's been a while, Randy, right? I've been busy.
I've been here.
Yeah, you've been here. I know you have. I missed like 12 of these with you. Oh, man, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Just finished my first 30 days at pros.com, P-R-O-S.com, which is the CFO's secret weapon in the fight against inflation and margin erosion. So more about that later. But I've been appointed CMO there, and it's based in Houston. Fantastic company, an amazing group of people, just an extraordinary culture, very reminiscent of Microsoft, actually. So I'm feeling right at home. I have noticed that when I tell them your culture's a lot like Microsoft, there's a little bit of a really, but it really is. It's a lot like Microsoft. Like the best parts of it, like there's some, urban legend negative aspects of Microsoft culture. I didn't really notice those when I worked there. I always thought it was amazing, but I guess there's bad moments happen in bad teams, but I always worked in great teams with great bosses, so never had those problems. And I think that's just kind of carried over. And I've got an amazing boss. Andres Reiner is the CEO at Pros, and he's something special. And it's one of the main reasons I went to Pros was for the people, and that's been proving to be an excellent decision. So that's way more on that, though. Way more on that. We'll get into that. And kind of my first 30 days was a pretty deep dive into all aspects of the business. So I've been pretty consumed, but starting to poke my nose up above the water a bit and look around, and thought I'd start talk about marketing again, right? What do you think, Randy? Do a little bit of marketing stuff?
Well, let's do some marketing.
Let's do some marketing. All right, we'll do some marketing. So, someone asked me the other day. They said something like, "What did they say? They say, what's your favorite thing about marketing?" I'm like, "Boo." Like, where do we start that conversation? But anyway, so what I want to do today is talk about something that I have never talked about on the Copernican Shift. We've never blogged about it. And it maybe a blog post on this too would be a good idea, Randy. Like, take all the ones we're using for the raw material for this, and then let's let's reference them all and make our own let's make our own top 20 list or something. Like get like as many of these as we can. But sonic branding is something that's been going on for a really long time. And it's something that's so subtle, I don't think a lot of us think about it that much. It's just sort of there, and you just assume, like, when the MGM lion roars at the beginning of a movie, it's like, oh, the MGM lion's roaring again. But that is a great example, and a very, very old example of sonic branding. And sonic branding is becoming more and more important in a world of podcasts, in a world of sort of quick connect, in a world of 3-minute videos, and in the kind of the world that we're living in. What's fascinating to me is that audio and sonic qualities are becoming more and more important all the time. And even Gary Vee, who is take him as you like. Gary Vee's been pushing sonic branding not just for large corporate brands, but also for individuals, and he's got sort of a cheek popping noise that he's using for his, which is because he's really cheeky. So something like that. What would my sonic brand be, Randy? What's my sonic brand?
Oh, man. Something.
Yeah, this is not a good sign. Not a good sign.
Something from Back to the Future or Star Wars.
A combination, a mashup of Back to the Future and Star Wars. Actually, you know what? That's not a terrible idea.
You could do that.
Like a lightsaber sound. That would be awesome. Please make it so. I really, really like that idea. See, this is just an example of how easy sonic branding really is. So let's go through sonic branding for a minute, and let's talk a little bit about some examples of it, because as I go through them, I think a lot of you will be kind of oh my gosh, I could have had a V8 kind of moment, because they're obviously, if I said, hey, give me your top 10 favorite sonic brands, I don't think most people would be able to rattle them off. But if I said, hey, think about the Netflix ta-dum, ta-dum sound. Do you think of that as a sonic brand? Everyone's, oh yeah, that's a sonic brand. Ta-dum, I am about to, Netflix and chill. Or ta-dum, I'm about to like binge watch, the next, 10 seasons of Game of Thrones or whatever it is you're going to watch, right? So I think that Netflix sound has become a really strong sonic brand. I actually really like the Amazon Prime one as well. Whenever I hear that, I think about Man in the High Tower, which is the very first show that I kind of binged on Amazon Prime, and so that sound became associated with that show. And apparently the Netflix sound actually was associated with what's that first show that was really big on Netflix about the president, and it's that disgraced actor Kevin.
Oh yeah. Kevin Spacey. Kevin
Spacey. What was his show? Yeah, come on. People are screaming at me right now as they listen to the podcast.
And neither of us can remember.
They're thinking about it. No, we've got to get there. We got to be able. What's that?
House of Cards.
House of Cards. See, it wasn't that hard. So anyway.
Well, yeah, I used Google.
You used Google. Don't say that.
Just remembered it.
Good job. Excellent recall. All right. So what else we got? Intel sound. I think most people like that Intel sound. And think what we'll do, Randy, is as I'm doing these and giving these examples, what I'll do is I'll leave a little space here. So I'll put a colon in the podcast so that you can insert the sound. So people go, oh, right. So, and these sounds are typically around 3.5 seconds long. That's classically what a sonic logo lasts for. Some are longer, like the Windows 95 sound, which Brian Eno wrote, which is pretty cool. The Windows 95 sound is 6 seconds long, and ironically, written on a Mac. So I don't know what that's all about, but that was how Windows 95 got its sound. But anyway, so just like, well, what I'll do is I'll leave a few seconds, and you can insert the sound. All right, so let's just try it first with the Intel. For example, the Intel sound. Thanks, Randy. Does that sound good? Is that about the right amount of time? Yeah?
That'll work.
You'll go for that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And then THX is another great one. The audience is listening. Oh my gosh, I love that THX sound, right? It's just like, every time you hear THX, you're just thinking, this is going to be an amazing film. And it was always so exciting. And it always started so quiet, right? And then the blue line would come in and say the audience is listening, and it just build almost like some kind of scene. It almost felt a little bit like Alien, like a little bit. And then it builds into man, THX, what a great sound. That is really one of the great sonic brands. McDonald's, I think they've done a nice job. Like the I'm Loving It campaign, when they first came out with I'm Loving It, I was like, are we loving it? But then, they have this kind of like, that's kind of bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, and I think that really works. And the I'm Loving It just sort of has created kind of a very joyous quality about McDonald's, which I think has really worked for the brand. So I was wrong in being skeptical about that in the early days. So here's an example of that McDonald's sound. There we go. I think I did a better job in that one. There is a really cool YouTube video. It's a couple minutes long. We'll put a link to it in the blog post. But it's every single startup and crash chime on a Mac. And it's a pretty cool video. If you've been a Mac user for a long time, I've been buying Macs since, a long time ago, the 80s. It's kind of cool to see them all in order. He's like, oh, I had that one. Oh, I had that one. Ooh, I had that one. It's pretty fun. But we'll probably just think about any kind of startup sound. Those startup sounds are a form of sonic branding. Windows 95, I mentioned a second ago. Let's listen to that Windows 95 sound. Yes, that's a 6-second Brian Eno song. He's got Brian Eno's interviewed by the San Francisco Chronicle, and he's talking about the creative brief, and they said they had this really long creative brief, You want a piece of music that's inspiring and universal and, blah, 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 da, 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 and optimistic and futuristic and sentimental and emotional. It's like this whole long list of adjectives. And then at the bottom it said, and it must be 3¼ seconds long. And he thought it was funny and amazing. And he described it as like this little piece of music is like a tiny little jewel. And that Microsoft piece, it was pretty neat. We talked about Netflix. Xbox has got a pretty good Sonic brand as well. Yep, there it is. And T-Mobile. I mean, the T-Mobile one's excellent. It's so sweet. It's so quick. D-D-D-D-D. I mean, what I love about that T-Mobile song is that it's a telephone. But it's not. It's like a different kind of phone. They've done an amazing. That T-Mobile one is amazing. I think another one which is great is Southwest Airlines. The bing. Essentially the call chime for the flight attendant. I think that's like another great piece of Sonic branding that they tie into their selling line as well. And there are many, many, many others. And so Randy, what would you add in? Do you have any favorite Sonic brands?
You hit Xbox, which is a favorite. Okay. How about the Green Giant? Does the Green Giant
ho ho ho? Oh my God, that's an amazing one. Oh, let's listen to that one for a second. Ho ho ho, Green Giant. That's great. Yeah, no, Green Giant's an excellent example. Nokia's not a bad one. They had a really interesting ringtone. It was that real electronic. Let's listen to that for a second. Right. NBC. That's a great sound. Let's insert that one here for a second. Listen to NBC. All right, and then there's so many others. I think what we've almost missed sometimes is just how many Sonic brands there are out there. And I'll say this is a pretty big marketing trend. Everyone's trying to get into it. Everyone's trying to create a Sonic brand that sort of makes the company stand for something. I'm going to be working on a Sonic brand for pros. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a little fun with it. And I think we'll have a Sonic brand for Copernican Shift pretty soon. What else would we do besides lightsabers, though, Randy? Let's brainstorm this for a second. Lightsabers is a great idea. Love lightsabers. What else could we have? Because it's Copernican Shift. Is there some kind of sound that would be like the planets rushing around the sun?
Yeah, space. You can't hear that in space, so it would be very quiet.
Right? What do you think of that? That's a pretty good song, right? Yeah? No?
Kind of sounds like a lightsaber.
Yeah. Maybe a combination of lightsaber spinning in the air, like very Copernican shifty. And then it's just this whole concept of branding. Let's talk about this for a second, because I think that when people come to brand, there's this, and this is where I think we can have this kind of broadcast conversation, which is, the broadcast marketing of the 20th century was very much, I'm going to tell you what my brand is. And the, 21st century is all about conversational marketing, which is you tell me what you think of me. And then what other people think of you is your brand. Now, that's always been true. It's always been true that what other people think of you is your brand. It's just that people weren't able to network, amplify, and connect on what they thought of a brand the way they can today. And so brands are being more heavily judged by the opinion of others because there are more visible opinions and more connected opinions. Now, the cool thing is, of course, with products like Sprinkler and many other things that are out there, you can actually now measure this. And so you can pull it in and you can actually understand what the sentiment about your brand is. And so, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I mean, on one hand, some people, I don't agree with this, but some people bemoan the fact that the connected networks control brands in ways they didn't before. But on the other hand, you've never been able to know what consumer sentiment was about your brand as well before. And so I think the positives far outweigh the negatives, because I think in the past people always had some sort of negative or some perception of your brand that you couldn't really measure very well, and now you can. And so where does Sonic branding fit into that? And to a certain extent, I think the Sonic brand is something that is a little bit more broadcasty, right? It's a little bit more like, this is what we stand for. On the other hand, it does create a handle for conversation. This is where I think it's quite interesting. It's got a conversation kind of connection because the Sonic brand itself so quickly communicates what the brand is that it's a little bit more subtle, and it makes you drive a brand impression without the brand yelling at you. And I'll tell you what I mean. So I've used this example of comedian many times. So I'll briefly mention it again. For those of you who have not heard this, we'll give you a link to a more lengthy description of this, but let me do the quick one right now, which is the great communicators, in my opinion, are comedians because they have a very specific communication objective. They want the audience to think that they're funny. They have different reasons why, they have different brand characters, but their goal's identical. Every single comedian wants you to think that they're funny. If they were to go on stage and behave like a marketer and say that they're funny and tell you that they're funny and repeat that message over and over again, you wouldn't think they're very funny. You would get the message, but you wouldn't believe it. And this is unfortunately what most marketers do. Most marketers tell you what they want you to believe about them, but you're like, I'll read the reviews, or I don't know if I believe you. Or in fact, the more you tell me that you're this way, the less I think you are. Like it's really tricky. When someone tells you how to think about them, you tend to back away from that. What does a comedian actually do? They send out a stimulus. See where I'm going here? Yeah, thank you. Sharp ones in the audience, pretty pricked up their ears. They send out a stimulus. That stimulus gets a reaction. You laugh, hopefully. And while you're laughing, you think to yourself, wow, she's really funny. And it's that moment of she's really funny that you say to yourself. No, sometimes you might say to a seatmate or something, but you say that to yourself and you believe it because you are laughing. You know that she's funny because she's making you laugh. And so when someone asks you, how was the comedian? Your comment is, she's hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. Like you've made that conclusion on your own, and it'd be very difficult for someone to shake that out of you. If someone could say, no, she's not funny at all. You're like, no, she's very funny. And you're like, I don't think she's funny. Well, okay, but I thought she was hilarious. Like you would not really be shaken from that. I can't even imagine what it would take for you to deny the reality of the experience you had, right? Okay, so sonic branding, I think, sits somewhere in between broadcast and conversation, and that what the sonic brand does is it just elicits a moment, right? So if you think about that Netflix sound, it's not, Netflix is here, right? It doesn't say that. It makes you, oh, what's that sound, right? It makes you replay the brand in your mind without the brand telling you to replay it in your mind. It makes you replay the brand name in your mind without the brand name being inserted in your mind, or the experience. It could be a startup experience or whatever the thing is that you're meant to recall. So what sonic branding does, and this is where it's, I think, highly nuanced and I think very, very powerful, is that when you hear that sound, you are doing a brand recall and probably attaching some emotion, because music elicits emotion. So attaching some emotion to that makes you feel excited or happy or more engaged with the brand. The Windows 95 one, I'll just go back to that for a second. I mean, that was a really big launch for Microsoft. Windows 95 really changed the company. And what they were looking for was inspiring, exciting music that made people excited about creating and doing new things. There wasn't like a drudgery sound, which was, let's face it, most of the time people were starting up Windows 95 was to do an Excel spreadsheet, right? But Windows 95 startup sound made me feel like the future was possible. Then I did my Excel spreadsheet. And I think there's something very powerful in that. And so as you were thinking about bridging between broadcast and conversation, I think sonic branding is a key part of that. And I actually think sonic branding may be more important today than ever before as a way of reinforcing brand equity and creating a conversational back and forth inside the customer's mind that make them think in positive ways about you. So that's why you'll see me doing more in sonic branding than I've done in the past and talking about it more as well. So that's kind of, I think that's my soapbox for the day. Any other good sonic branding examples, Randy?
Well, this isn't exactly an example, but Harley Davidson tried to patent the sound of their motorcycles.
Well, let's hear that sound for a second. I think you could patent that. I mean, Harley Davidson, it's a very distinctive sound.
It is,
but very
it wasn't distinctive
sound,
enough.
Right? Yeah.
So that's their sonic brand.
I mean, if Tesla could do theirs, if Tesla was just patent their sound, it'd be just silence.
Which is the same sound as planets spinning around the sun.
Well, you're being very technical about this planet spinning around the sun thing, by the way.
In space, no one can hear you screaming.
Yeah, screaming, but you can hear the planets. Come on. It's the screaming you can't hear. Anyway, so if you think of any others, Randy, fire them in at the end of this. Just like throw in a sort of a set of random sounds, and at home you can all play along and see if you can guess what the sonic brands are, and then we'll update it in the blog post. But that's it for today. So thanks for listening. I'm Grad. This is the Copernican Shift, and I'll see you later.